Sounds like we'll go ahead and get things started here. So, yes, once again, welcome to Auditory Bliss, the who, what, and why of production sound. In other words, how can you find some peace on the set and not have to worry about that aspect of it? Um, who do you need on the team? What is it? Uh, just by way of introduction, I'm Tom Johnson. I'm a production sound mixer from Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm co-owner of Inverted Staircase Productions and worked on, as far as recent faith-based films that I've worked on, Pursuit of Freedom, Disciples in the Moonlight, and hopefully soon to be released Beyond Belief. Just wrapped production October on that one. So also was involved with a short that was on the short list for the Oscars, The Ice Cream Man. So that said, let's do this button. That'll work. What?
You know what Sergey said.
Let them go! Hey kid, what the heck?
Doggone it, Albert.
You're not catching me today, Cookie!
We'll give the Eagle when Willie's out to lunch. Let's just survive the day first.
Me? Yeah, go for it. My turn. Hi, I'm Pete. JJ and I have been friends since forever. He's gonna get his feet wet on this job. I'm just excited to be here.
It's all right. Pedros! I'm gonna wait for you in the car, all right? See you later. Hey, doggy. I'm not the one trespassing. It's my friend back there. Okay.
What? Come on, let's go.
Seriously?
Okay. So it was once posited that talkies are just a fad. So obviously, sound has become a major part of what motion pictures are about. Alongside that is, of course, the need to actually capture the original performances. So that's where production sound comes in. And for today's purposes, we're going to concentrate exactly on that, the production sound aspect, on-set sound. So today I want to give you kind of a base understanding of what the production sound team is, what it is they do, and why that matters to you guys. So, ooh, hey, I totally skipped a slide, but hey, there you go. Okay, so who is the team? Give you the obvious one first. They're those tasked with the acquisition of all on-set audio elements. So first off, you have your production sound mixer. You got your boom operator. And lastly, the one that's often forgotten, the utility. Got a little reverb in here. It's nice. So that said, who is the production sound mixer? Production sound mixer is, well, first off, I'm going to use my cheat sheet here just so I don't miss any points for you. He's the head of the audio department, first and foremost. Additionally, he's going to recommend what crew members that he wants on his team. Why? Because you want a skilled team. None of these positions are entry-level positions. He's going to manage all on-set sound production, or sound acquisition, I should say. He'll be managing timecode for audio and video synchronization. Yes, connecting all those wonderful devices so that they line up once post gets to it. He manages and selects the microphones for all the scenes, basically setting the tone for each scene. And obviously maintains the mix and individual track levels. And last but not least, provides a feed for those that need to hear that mix. So, and, almost forgot, he maintains the sound report. Sound report is going to be basically a log of all the necessary clips. Everything you're recording, you have to have all the details on that. Scene, shot, take. Post is going to need to be able to see that. Why? Because otherwise they got a bunch of random files they don't know what are. So that's kind of loose version of what the job is. Kind of going to run through these fairly quickly. Boom operator. Once again, I want to specify, this is not an entry-level position. It's demanding, physically, mentally, in all ways. It is a very demanding job. So, obviously, the first and foremost, they'll be positioning the boom. This is what everyone thinks of. This is not a job for a PA. Again, you're going to be fighting several elements as you're doing this. Positioning the boom involves basically watching out for shadows, watching out for reflections on the set, watching out for crew members, watching out for where your actors are. This is a very situationally aware sort of job. Boom operator also helps with other mic placements on set. So, we'll get into a little bit of that here shortly, but they will also serve as the mixer's eyes and ears. What do I mean by that? Oftentimes the mixer is not necessarily right in the heat of the action. Mixers will be off to the side of the set, kind of maintaining their area. Boom op, however, will be right in the thick of the set, so they may hear things that the mixer cannot hear. So they can kind of keep the mixer informed of those things. And also a little bit act as a liaison between the production sound mixer and the set. And last but not least, the utility. Utility is kind of a support role for both the mixer and the boom operator. In fact, can act as even a second boom operator. They'll help out with the general setup of equipment. They'll help with cable runs. And I guess I already mentioned that one, but hey. So, bottom line. The mission of the sound department, should you choose to accept it, to capture clean, clear, consistent, and intelligible dialogue, and to capture all necessary sound in general. So, let's go a little further into what I mean by all that. The first step, as with any department, great audio is going to begin in pre-production, not once you get on set. In other words, you want to ask the right questions before you even step foot on set. So, pardon me while I take a peek at my cheat sheet. I got notes that aren't on the screen. So, generally speaking, if it's at all possible, you really want to be able to go on the location scout, but if you're not, at least be able to ask the questions about this. So, questions about the set you want to know ahead of time. Are there any potential intermittent noises? What I mean by that is, are there nearby highways where you're going to have traffic buzz you periodically? Are there flight paths for airplanes you need to worry about? Let's see. Are there going to be grounds crews that are going to be start working somewhere during the middle of production? And is there anything you can do about that ahead of time to kind of curb that problem? Are there nearby train tracks? Can you get the schedule for that train? Are there any rowing teams that might be practicing? Yes, I'm not joking. This has happened. I was on a production down in Florida. We're off the edge of the water, right mid-take, row team comes in the side of the shot. Stroke, stroke. Yeah, had to shut down production for a little while. It's all you can do. You had to wait for them to pass. Myriad other possibilities as far as what could interrupt you. Let's see. On the notes of highway, had one scene. I'm not going to toss this one on the screen, but had a situation where we were having a nice heart-to-heart scene, and they had, in their infinite wisdom, decided to set this right next to a highway. So mic selection came into play big time for that one. Same thing, flight paths. Let's see, on several films I've worked on, this has become a major, major issue. Problem is, if you got too much of it, well, the planes might become part of your atmosphere for the scene, honestly, and you'll have to add extra ones in post. So try your best to avoid it at all costs. And if you can hold, please hold. But that's kind of the aim. So beyond intermittent noises, there's also the ambient challenges of the location. What I mean by ambient's going to be those constant sounds that you hear on location. Obviously, first and foremost, my famous nemesis, air conditioning. That one usually you can at least do something about unless you're in an office building that's centralized and they won't let you shut it down. So it's trying to minimize that as much as possible. Other equipment that might be running. So I've definitely been in certain situations where that was the case. Pursuit of Freedom, we actually, the very first location, very first day, I was not able to be on location scout for it, but I walked down. They've got us in effectively this steam tunnel. It looked great. I won't lie. It absolutely looked great. However, there's a nice droning sound. It was a little more than an air handler. So constant pipe noise, things like this. So after letting out a sigh, it was, how many mics can I get on this situation, and try to make that clear. So you're going to have to work the problem sometimes if you weren't able to eliminate that. Again, in pre-production, which is the goal. Let's try to get that out of the way ahead of time. Let's see. Other things amidst that, of course, also seasonal insects can be a thing. Cicadas, the like. All things you're going to have to deal with. Humming electric lines, that can happen too. In Disciples in the Moonlight, we encountered that actually on some of our cornfield scenes. Best you can do at that point is grab a sample of it and kind of smooth it out on the post end of things. Last on-set thing is acoustic challenges. What's an acoustic challenge? Well, I think we're having one in this room right now. It's basically that little bit of slapback, the reverb of the room. So basically hard reflective walls, large spaces. Hey, look, that's what we've got right now. So yeah, for instance, let's see. In Pursuit of Freedom, we had a scene with a big card game going on. This scene's interesting because we had both a mechanical challenge as well as this stuff going on. Big open space, probably a 2-story building, all that basically floor to ceiling. Concrete floors, concrete walls, and of course, whatever equipment was running in the background that we couldn't do a thing about. So we had a couple things to think about with the scene. First off, it was mic selection, which I usually choose a bit of a shorter mic to help out with that. Additionally, we had a light that we couldn't go near because every time you did, it'd start buzzing on the mic. So again, situational awareness, knowing what the problems are. All was said and done, we also recorded some extra lines after that we finished the scene off in a side room where we were able to pad it out with blankets and make everything sound a little bit better. So post had another option beyond the room that we're actually in. Although rumor has it, we actually used the original audio from what I'm told. Speaking of which, here is that scene.
night, huh? Never learned acting. My favorite words.
Now, the thing I'll say about it is the editor actually kind of used the reverb a little bit to his advantage. I think the way he decided to cut it. So it worked out very nicely. So let's see. So once again, I've kind of gone through a little bit of it, but with each of these things, there's always potential solutions for each potential problem. So again, know what you can in pre-production so you have the right tools to combat the problems as you encounter them. Again, for producers, always consult your sound team ahead of time. You can save yourself about 1,000 headaches. Okay, so all these challenges will basically lead to collaborations between departments. Obviously, you've already been collaborating with your director, most likely, just to figure out exactly the specific things they want for the film to give it the feel they want to have. But that said, as the problems arise, you're going to want to start talking to other departments to figure things out. We'll start with the camera department. This one's pretty obvious. I already mentioned time code, so you're going to be talking to them about that to make sure, again, the time on your recorder is aligned with their camera, is aligned with the slate, so everybody's on the same page there and post doesn't have to pull their hair out. Additionally, with camera, though, this is actually especially with the boom operator, is your mic in the shot? Are there any shadows? Sometimes that's hard to see. So sometimes you'll lean on camera department to find out, hey, is there anything we're missing here? Same thing with reflections. Once again, it'll sneak up on you. So getting camera department's feedback is definitely valuable. From there, wardrobe. This comes into play when you're working with lav mics in particular. For laving, obviously, you've got the potential of clothing rustle. If you are able to talk to wardrobe ahead of time, you may actually be able to eliminate some of that stuff before it's even a problem. They can maybe change fabrics, things like that, or at least take it into consideration ahead of time. Or if they do have a challenging fabric, maybe they can make a route for you to get the mic to pass through into open air so you're not actually rubbing against the clothes. Things like that. So again, talk to other departments and make sure you can work the problem with them. Additionally, hair and makeup alongside of that. If you need to do a mic placement in the hair, you're definitely going to have to talk to your hairdresser and make sure, okay, am I showing? Am I good? All these questions. It's just little items that you've got to think through and make sure are going to be clean. Also with wardrobe, not just how clean your mic is, but is your mic showing in any way, shape, or form? You never want them to catch you at your magic. So, let's see. Grip and electric. Now, why on earth would sound department need them? Well, first off, we talked about acoustic challenges. When you're treating the room for that, they'll be able to tell you, okay, I want to add some sound blankets. So where can I put those blankets that aren't going to interfere with the lights? Where can I put those blankets that are not going to be a hazard? Again, questions you have to ask. Additionally, sometimes G&E team can make small adjustments to let your boom get into the shot. Put a flag on the light just so you can sneak that pole in and not cause other issues. Additionally, a lot of sound blankets are both black and white. Now, might wonder why that matters. Well, for lighting guys, black is going to soak up the light, white's going to be a bounce. So, hey, which side would you guys like? Doesn't matter to me from a sound standpoint, but for them, it can make or break the shot. So, always a good thing to consider. So, once you're on set, kind of give you 3 key elements that the sound department's going to be looking to capture. First one, the obvious one, dialogue. Want to be able to hear people speak. Ambience. So basically the sound of the space and the elements to create the sound of the space if you're going to be doing some post adjustments on it. And obviously the natural sounds of action. You might hear me refer to it as Nat Foley moving forward. I'll just pre-warn you on that one. So kind of go through each of those individually. So dialogue, first mission of on-set sound acquisition, and really your number one priority. So you're going for clarity here. This is going to be accomplished through the selection of microphones. This is going to be accomplished through proper mic placement and obviously proper levels for recording. I won't go too far into the nuances during this session. Side note, come see me tomorrow. That's where I go into that. Let's see. Going to give you a couple clips to kind of help illustrate some of this. Again, lots of different challenges with lots of different tricks. So I'm really bad about keeping up with my slideshow. I apologize.
No, hey, that's my son. Don't shoot. Hey, no, that's my son. Don't shoot. No, don't. Wait. Don't touch him. Let him go. No. I'll go. Let him go. Here's one, too, Jake.
Pedros, there's such great to see you, my brother. It's a long time, yes. What brings you in today? I have a special situation I'm hoping that you can help me with. Oh, my goodness. They don't have any papers. I don't have any paperwork. I was hoping maybe you could help.
Maybe we should rethink this whole thing.
They're just doing this to scare us.
It worked.
Well, we all know where we're getting into.
That's so easy for you to say. By the way, how's your face doing?
What are you saying? Am I taking a risk here, too?
Nobody's saying
Well, sure
that.
sounds like it.
Stakes just got higher.
Okay. So again, mic selection, mic placement, proper levels. Big time important on some of these. For Disciples in the Moonlight, the scene on the playground. That scene involved a lot more than what you're seeing. We had big generators. We had haze machines running. So we had to calm down these noises. We had, obviously a whole lot of movement going on. So, mic selection, critical. We had to choose something with the narrowest pattern that we could find. In terms of dampening some of the sounds, my gaffer was great to work with and actually tried to kind of build a little bit of a sound dampening cage around some of the generators and around the fog machine rig. The hazers actually were attached to a big tube running around the whole entire playground. So it was a big noisemaker. So we definitely had to collaborate a bit to figure out that one. Let's see. Moving on to the shot from Pursuit of Freedom. That one was pretty simple. It was just clean indoor scene. So again, proper mic selection for indoors. And that one kind of went fairly well overall. And we were able to get the mic in nice and tight. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes, we were boom and lav both. Some of those we had to be a little bit distant, always running lavs on everything as well. So we had options once it came time for post. So, but yeah, but again, we're using a very narrow coned shotgun mic to do that one. So. And for the benefit of the camera, I forgot to repeat the question, but the question was, of course, was I using more than just the boom? So that's for the benefit of our camera recording. So let's see. So from there, I mentioned it before, room treatments. Play a big part in keeping the dialogue clean. Again, kill off that reverb so you can keep everything nice and clean. And every once in a while, working around noisy sound effects. Again, I mentioned hazers. Hazers can be my nemesis on set. So, let's see. Make sure I don't miss something here. Okay, yeah. So, kind of set this up for you. Disciples, we had a very interesting scene. Hazer needed to run through the entire sequence. And I do mean the entire sequence. We were working in a large warehouse type space. Problem with that, of course, is it takes a lot of haze to keep that atmosphere going. But the DP really loved the way it looked. So, the gaffer gave me a little special rig. He gave me a button. I was very excited, and ultimately, I am Groot.
Can't leave anything to chance. It's imperative we reduce our risk, so get creative. How can we get Bibles into these states without being caught? Clock is ticking.
Problem number one, carry them. What about an encrypted file? Like on our phones or a hard drive or something?
Now their technology can read anything. I mean, remember what happened with the woman in the diner? This has to be something physical that we can hand over to these churches.
Yeah, but you can't expect to be carrying huge boxes or stuff a bunch of them under your shirts.
Which leads to problem number two. What if you have to run?
What if we get caught? Then what?
Yeah, that's why our cover should work. They'd have no reason to search an obscure hiding place.
You seriously think they'll expect us to be hiding Bibles here? You don't think they'll search everything? These have to be hidden in plain sight.
Okay, you're talking about protecting these Bibles, but we also need to focus on protecting ourselves.
And that's problem number three. So what kind of protection? No guns.
Are you kidding? You're gonna send us out there, defenseless.
God protects His word. Okay, we have seen that time and time again. And this time will be no different. Okay, have faith in them.
I don't know. There's just so many unknowns, it's hard to know how to prepare.
One thing we can't expect, these agents will try anything.
So yeah, basically, they ran the hazer up until we started the scene. Turned the hazer off immediately as that scene started. He delivers his first line. Everything else was recorded another time, obviously, since it was done as voiceover. But then we get to the end of the scene. Again, hazer had to run 100% all the way through. Cut it just before that last line. So I had to figure out what the visual cues were. That whole thing was a live time lapse. So there was no cutting. So again, pop it off for that last line and done. So again, collaborations between departments are huge. Absolutely huge. Okay. Last up, ambience. So not going to say too much about this one, but bottom line, it's the sound of the space that you're filming in. If you've heard of room tone, okay, this is where room tone comes into play to some degree. That's going to be the sound of the space you're in general. Additionally, in terms of ambience, is going to be, are there any added elements they want to kind of layer in along with that room tone? So capturing those elements. So basically get a focused item on those extra elements you might want. Usually you'll run around 30 seconds of each element. That way post can loop it as needed and make everything sound nice and smooth. Let's see. I do want to mention that this is kind of one of those things that the sound department does that, generally speaking, if it's done right, guess what? Audience is not going to notice it per se, but that's the point. You don't want them to notice it. You want them to be in the film to not notice these things. It's generally the truth of most sound department things, is that if they're not noticing your work, guess what? You probably did it correctly. Now, ambience in particular is going to show most specifically in really quiet scenes, the more intimate scenes where you're having heart-to-hearts, things like that. This scene of disciples, very simple. 2 characters talking in a room, but you can hear that subtle background.
Your mother would be so proud of you. sorry. I haven't been the father you needed. Your mother, she was an amazing woman. Do you blame me?
You want to know that now?
Yeah, I do. I need to know.
So again, that's why it matters to get your ambience just right. When you're quiet like that, everything comes out. It's all going to be there. Post is going to want to maybe massage that a little bit, add in extra elements, but you want those subtle elements to really shine and enhance that scene to draw your audience in more. So next up, talk about natural Foley. So these are kind of the incidental sounds made during the scene. Your footsteps, you're picking up items off a table, things like this. Big thing is, yes, you can get Foley from a sound effects library. You can perform Foley in post. However, the nice thing about getting it on set is you do have that natural sound of the environment along with it. It's going to feel just a little bit more organic. Now, for Disciples, that was a specific conversation that I had with our director, Brett Varvel, very early on when we started discussing the movie, is he wanted the film to have a very organic feel. He wanted certain sound elements to almost be a character within the film. He wanted those subtleties. He wanted the organic feeling. He didn't want to have to build a lot of that in post. So we did try to give some extra special attention to little things like running through cornfields, which obviously was a huge part of that movie. Running through the autumn leaves, wind blowing through trees, things like this. Just little texturing elements that they could build that background with and not necessarily have to rely on a Foley stage, but actually have it in that environment, in the moment to draw that audience in better. If you've seen Disciples, I think this works for the most part. So just to kind of give you a few examples of that, yeah, it's a whole lot of
Do tell your friends not to walk around town with these in their pockets. Would you? You're free to go now, Mr. Edwards.
Yeah, again, lots of little subtle things that they popped into the background of a lot of those clips. A lot of music, yes, but listening to the background, you hear the clink as they climb into the caboose. You hear the Cairo as they put it down on the table and slide it over. Just these little elements. Yes, sir. Absolutely, yes. Generally, you start with them. Sometimes you'll go pick it up. Again, the question was whether I'm miking for the sound effects as well as the voice. And the answer is, generally speaking, yes. It's great to be able to go and grab those things. So you try to do it specifically. If you don't get it in the scene, then you go back and you try to grab that specific sound one more time and do a few takes while you're on set. Again, so you've got that environment around you. So everything sounds natural and cohesive. Again, you want it as transparent as possible, which actually leads me to a little war story I was going to tell, once again from Disciples, just because it's got a lot of great examples, partially because of Brett's directive on this. But so some of the running through the cornfield sequences, we had a long night involved with a lot of the running through the cornfields. A very long night, in fact. So a lot of the shots themselves, they were adding in actually running alongside like a gator to get the shot. So you had loud engines, things like that you couldn't get the sound correctly with. So your option is to get the sound while, in other words, without the camera running, right? Well, I mentioned it was a long night. So as the sun's starting to creep up, we finally got around to doing the Foley. Sound team was on standby this whole time. But that said, we got it before the birds started chirping, did several passes of that, a little bit of extra of the intro scene where the truck goes into the cornfield, got some of the corn crashing down, some of that stuff. So sometimes you got to wait for your Foley pass, but it's important to grab if you've got the time to pull it off. So let's see. So next up, why does production sound matter? Kind of get into the nitty gritty of this. Great sound's going to enhance and accentuate your visuals. Obviously, again, sound can make your visuals look good. In other words, people are going to be quicker to forgive a little bit of a sloppy visual as opposed to slop in the sound. Slop in the sound, what's going to happen? First thing you hear it, you're going to be pulled out, right? Yeah, audience is completely distracted at that point. If they buzz the focus a little bit, it's more likely to be forgiven if you've got great sound going over the top of it. Just mentally, you tend to bypass it. Again, I've already been driving this home a lot, but I just want to kind of repeat it. On-set sound, it's always going to sound a lot more natural. Again, if you try to do it on stage, it's going to be unnaturally clean sometimes. Also, if you're trying to replace it after the fact, there's always something that just feels not quite there. You can't bring that performance back. It's all about capturing that initial performance of the actors, the honesty of that performance. And big one, post is going to be able to spend more time being creative rather than correcting bad audio. Simple fact is, you can't really make bad audio good. All you can do is make it less bad. And most importantly, the audience will be immersed in your film overall. That's the whole goal of this thing. Again, you don't want the audience to notice your work per se. You want it to all feel organic, cohesive, and draw you into the story. And I buzzed through that a lot quicker than I anticipated. So I want to open up the floor for questions. Yes, sir. You first.
For your mic, for better,
That's a good question. Okay, so the question was, if you're going from outside, was it outside to inside? What would be your better choice? A shotgun for exterior or more of a pencil mic? Great question. In that case, it depends on what's happening on either side of that transition. Usually you'd hope that there's a cut in between those, honestly, because lighting setups are going to change completely. Excuse me. But if you have to pick between the two, in that instance, I'd probably lean toward the interior mic and just make sure you treated it for outside so you're not being affected by wind elements, things like that. That'd be my gut. Sorry, did you have one first? Okay, sorry. Just want to make sure. Go ahead. Great question. Yeah. So the question is, when I'm getting sound on set, am I having the actors do that or another solution, basically? The answer is yes. It depends. It truly depends. A lot of the time, I might get someone else to actually do the run, especially if the actors are kind of at their end for the day. Then sometimes you'll get someone else to do the Foley run. Just kind of depends. Or if there's something very specific about the wardrobe and the actor's game, I always like to get the actor's performance personally, just because there are nuances that they may be doing that are great to capture. Just, again, keep it natural as much as possible. So I know that's kind of a wishy-washy answer, but it depends on the scenario. What else we got? Yes?
What's a hazer?
Hazer. Basically, think of it like kind of lower lying fog, basically. So it's basically camera will use it a lot of the time to get a nice kind of soft lighting effect, basically. They're almost diffusing the light through it. So it's a really bad explanation, and my DP is probably groaning somewhere mentally. Let's see. Yeah.
Capturing sounds in there, you hiding mics in plants and things like that.
Sometimes, yes, absolutely. I'll do plants. I'll do obviously your lavs, obviously your booms, and again, you choose based on the scenario. Yes. Okay, a place like looking for stores, that type of thing, or okay, yeah. So the question is where to get less expensive mics for beginners. Really, there's a lot of places you can go to for that, but I would say most of the audio stores will have the less expensive gear. So it's just kind of knowing what you want to look at. There's a lot of great entry-level brands right now to kind of get you going. I actually would look at the entry-level mics from some of the major manufacturers so you get used to how those mics act. For instance, kind of just to name one, I use a lot of Sennheiser mics. Sennheiser has a lower level, entry level mic, and it's a great place to start. So again, most stores will carry them. Like there's several audio stores out there that specialize in location sound. So you've got, to name a few, Gotham Sound, True Audio, Audio Department. Those are probably some of your primaries. Even B&H will have some stuff too. So, again, lots of sources.
So, like 32-bit low recording, is that a thing that you rely on?
I should have known that was going to come up. Generally speaking, right now it's still in its infancy, I'd say. I think it could potentially mature, but right now there's only a couple manufacturers really doing it. Still, Pro Audio is effectively 48K, 24-bit. That's Pro Audio. 32-bit float's kind of a different animal, and I think you'll see some maturity in the technology over the next couple of years. But right now, it's not really ready for prime time, in my opinion. Yeah, it's a little bit. It's a whole nother conversation. That's what it is. So look it up, do some research. But again, it's kind of bit of an in vogue technology that's coming out to kind of give you the idea is to give you a little bit more headroom on your audio. Again, not quite there. I think the whole pipeline needs to be orchestrated around that, and that's what's not happening thus far. Exactly. It's a little premature. Great question, though. What else we got?
So, do you have a scene where it's got elements that are both really loud, really quiet, and you usually use separate mics to capture one loud and
it's a great question. The answer is sometimes. Capturing loud and soft elements of a scene simultaneously is the question. So sometimes you'll try to get your level somewhere in between and work it that way. That said, yes, sometimes you'll actually try to get multiple mics on it because, yeah. Generally speaking, I'll always have lavs and booms on the scene. Absolutely. So I may actually stage one of them a little bit lower than the other one. So I definitely have a safety in there. But there's also how you stage the levels on the mixer as well is going to play into that as well. So adjust down a little bit, give yourself some headroom. So again, slightly wishy-washy. It depends on exactly what the scenario is and how high they're going. I definitely had a lot of these scenarios. Disciples, there was actually one part of the interrogation scene where I had our actor for Hazard come up to me, and he's like, I'm just going to give you a warning. I'm going to cut loose. It's like, okay. He gave me no idea what he meant by that. So he was not joking. It was, we went from this slow, reserved, very Matrix Mr. Anderson performance all the way up to this. It took a moment. I needed a second take on that one. I won't lie. He definitely caught me on that one. But yeah. How do you prepare for it? Again, it kind of goes back to gain staging. Make sure you got a little bit lower level on the mic ahead of time. Set your mics at a little bit different level so you kind of can massage it in a little bit. Generally speaking, I'll take the boom just a little bit more on the conservative side, so I've got some headroom to adjust for it. Also, kind of keep your finger on the button on the gain. I don't like to play with it during the take, but if you have to, you can still save yourself if you got your finger there ready to go. So.
Beginners.
Fabulous question. I don't think I'm even covering that in tomorrow's session, so it's a great question. Questions whether recording on camera versus recording in a separate recorder. Always in a separate recorder. 100% of the time. Always a separate recorder. Camera recording, generally speaking, is not going to be as high end. They don't have the preamps. There's a lot of different factors about how they do it it's just not optimized, basically, for good professional sound. Always try to go to a separate recorder. At this point, you can even get into an entry-level recorder pretty reasonably for those that are just starting out and still get great sound. Let's see. Yes, sir. I know Post guys have cleaned up my audio with some AI tricks, but I can't really speak to it a whole lot. As with any tool, it's all about subtlety. Don't get too crazy when you're doing it. So it can definitely push you kind of digital sounding. Just like any other noise reduction filtration, it's got the same pitfalls. So just be careful is what I would say on that, and don't rely on it. Let's see, I know I saw other hands. Yes.
How do you recommend getting started as a sound mixer boom operator, and where do you look for like applications?
There's the question I wanted to hear. Absolutely. Good one. Okay. How do you get started as a sound mixer or a boom op? I'll just kind of give you a little my history, and that's probably the best way to start on that. For me, I actually started out dabbling with a little bit of audio here and there. I was doing radio. I did some music stuff. So obviously I already had a little bit of passion for audio. But from there, it's like, okay, what do you do? Well, went to college, did my obligatory media film degree, but where do you do that? Go professionally from there. Everyone asks this question at some point in their life. So in my case, I actually found a local filmmaking networking group. Started talking to people. It turned out the guy that headed it up was really old school, really great sound mixer. And we started talking. He got me on a couple shoots, started mentoring me over the years. We're still great friends to this day, and that's really how I got in. Now I can give you the other side of that story too, which is I had been on a set as an audio mixer previously. However, it was trial by fire, because this is the other way you can get in, which is just do the thing. In this case, I went on to the set of a film that I'm going to leave nameless for right now, but I was there as an unpaid, untrained PA, fresh out of college and really excited to be there, right? So I'm talking to the producer one day. He's like, "Oh, you have a radio background. You know what? This is right at the cusp of the whole digital transition. Here's a DAT recorder. Oh, your friend here, he's tall. Here's a boom pole. You're our sound team." I'm like, really? Okay. Yeah, this was probably not my most shining film. And I'm being warned, so we're going to have to wrap it up. So, got about 10? Okay, cool. So, we got a few more.
How do you go about doing the mix, the being in production serve when you don't have a boom up, or you want both the British sound?
Basically, you wear a baby belly. So basically, you'll usually have, I don't recommend the strap that comes with most cases. Buy a harness if you're going to have to do it. It's nobody's ideal. Try to get a boom up. By all means, try to get a boom up, especially with narrative work. Trust me, as I kind of was trying to convey in this session, it's a big deal. If you're trying to balance between booming and mixing, you're going to compromise your product. You're trying to get your levels right, but if your hands are up here, what are you doing with your levels? Yeah, so you're trying to split the difference, and you won't have an ideal mix. There's just no way to do it. You can kind of get ish by one-handing it here and there, but again, then you're no longer focusing on your booming technique, which means something may slip there. So try to get a boom up. That said, if you have to, get a harness. Your mixer will be strapped here. You're going to be keeping your boom over your head, trying to do this, and then again, one-handing it, adjust your levels as you can. So...
Special review for one testing mics before the shot is done, or the two
Question is whether I do anything specific to test mics ahead of the shot, basically, correct? Yeah, okay. I'm generally speaking, you just check to make sure everything is working. Usually I will actually ask the actors, in particular with lavs, I'll have them give me a line, not just talk necessarily. If you can, try to go, no, is that your actual level for the scene? Is that where you're going to be at? Now, sometimes they'll fib to you. I will give you that. Every once in a while, they'll give you a little warning. Again, back to that disciples. I'm going to get loud. Okay. You try to adjust for what they tell you, but you want to try to get a baseline ahead of the shot. So yes, absolutely. Who else? Yes, sir. Okay. Questions, how much I work with the composer. It's actually an interesting question at this particular moment in time. Usually I don't get to very much. Now that said, had a very special situation recently. Don't know how many of you are aware of the production of Beyond Belief that went on recently, but it's all very, if anyone's familiar with the band Petra from kind of 80s, 90s, well, they were kind of, the stories written around their music and kind of a battle of the bands associated with that. Well, music obviously was almost its own character in this movie. So in this case, we actually had our composer on set for several days. And in fact, doing some final little mix recordings so we can actually track everything on set. We're actually doing playback for the music. So in that case, we were working really closely. To the extent that I drafted him at one point to operate playback because we had our hands full. So it's a rare opportunity, but I think if you have a music-driven film, it can be super beneficial. So, anyone else? Anything else? Come on. That is an involved question. The question is, how do you keep your arms from shaking as a boom op? The way I keep my arms from shaking is I hire a boom op. But for a boom op, big key is honestly keeping your muscles relaxed. It's all about stance and how you move your muscles. Find your baseline position, which is usually going to be somewhere right around here, and keep your movements. Again, you'll notice limbs are all still bent. That's important, so your muscles aren't locking up on you. And never want to be fully extended like this. You will start shaking very quickly, in fact. It's all about don't lock up. So, long answer to a short question. Yes? Animation's an interesting one, and a lot of that's going to be probably Foley stage, unless you specifically want to get that, again, kind of ambient, organic sort of feel going. If you want to actually get your sounds on a location, be an interesting take, honestly. So I'm not sure if I've seen that specifically done, but you absolutely could. Again, it's all about being creative in the process, I would say, is the real answer to that question. What else we got? Yes, sir. Every once in a while, it really depends on the production entirely. So, not as often as I'd like necessarily, but usually I have to let the baby go and see how it comes out. And you hope that when it comes time for after post that they treated your babies well. Nothing worse than sitting in the premiere going, fortunately, I have not had that too often. Great question. I'm going to cover that a whole lot more tomorrow, but yes, absolutely. Everything on its own track, and then the mix track's a separate deal. Everything's isolated, basically, because otherwise your post guy's stuck. Mix has got a couple different purposes. Again, by all means, sit in on tomorrow's session. I think you'll like it, based on that question. Question was whether I keep all my tracks separate for the benefit of the camera over there. They get everything. So, isolated tracks as well as the mix. Absolutely. Question being whether I send everything to post. Absolutely, I do. What else we got? Come on. Throw me a curveball. Yes, sir.
How do you reduce clothes rubbing on a ladder?
Always a great question. Remember I mentioned collaborate with your wardrobe folks? That's a big piece of it. I'll go a little more in depth on tomorrow's session on this one. If you can make it, by all means do. But lots of little tricks as far as how you stick it into the clothing, barriers you put between layers of the clothes, or is there a way to cheat it outside the clothes? It's kind of the short version of that answer. Anything else? I think we got a couple minutes. One 100%. Questions whether I've ever had a mic decide to go out on me in the middle of a take, even after testing, making sure my frequencies were clean. Yes, it's absolutely happened. Basically, when it happens, all you can do at that point is look to your assistant director and go, yeah, we're going to need to, if you catch it early enough where it's a long take, we're going to need to restart, or we need another take. So, absolutely did happen. I know there was one instance where I had a mic decide to misfire actually on Beyond Belief last year. Got through it. I'm looking at it. Mic just completely decided to die. I had no idea. Several restarts later and it was fine, but it just froze up on me completely and nothing was transmitting. I'm like, well, this is interesting. All you can do is take a few minutes, fix it, and go again. And that's where for those that aren't sound people, have sensitivity to your sound department and give them the time they need to work the magic that you need them to work. So kind of throw that out there. Since I know not everyone in the audience is probably going to be the mixer. So, very good. One last. Okay, how do I record animals like dogs? Really, it's about the same as anything else. You're going to want to pay attention to whoever's your animal handler. Know the rules around that animal. That's the big thing. Some don't necessarily like to have the mic close to them, so be sensitive to that. More aggressive animals in particular, you need to know that. Sometimes you won't be able to get tight. Other animals, you know what? They'll just follow that mic along because it looks like a big rabbit. So that's kind of the tips and tricks. But yeah, absolutely 100% talk to the animal handler to figure out the best way to deal with it.